Only 5 times in the entire history of international pageantry has a single country won both Miss Universe and Miss World in the same calendar year. I call that an alpha double, the single most dominant thing a country can do across the 2 legacy pageants. France did it back in 1953, Australia pulled it off in 1972, Venezuela in 1981. But only one country has ever done it twice, and they did it just 6 years apart, with 4 women who became some of the most famous names in pageantry, 2 of them transcending to global stardom. This is the story of India at Miss Universe and Miss World. Hello, I'm the pageant nerd. I'm honoured to have a wonderful Indian audience who are some of the most engaged, passionate and appreciative viewers on this channel. Every time I cover an Indian queen or reference India's pageant history, my comments section lights up. I noticed that, and I'm grateful for it. 3 of my 7 most watched videos of all time have India as the subject. I've covered both Miss Universe and Miss World together before in pageant previews, but this is the first time I'm doing a definitive country history, an eras video, across both alpha pageants. I'm expanding the series beyond Miss Universe, because India's story demands it. You genuinely cannot tell this country's pageant story through just one lens. And trust me, it deserves it. Of course, if you enjoy my nerdy take on the world of pageantry, please hit like, subscribe, and super thanks. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Namaste. India's Miss Universe journey begins in the very first edition of the pageant. In 1952, Indrani Rahman travels to Long Beach, California as one of just 30 contestants. She goes unplaced. And then India simply doesn't show up at Miss Universe again until Meher Castellino in 1964. That's a 12-year gap. At Miss World, India arrives even later. Their first delegate is Fleur Ezekiel in 1959. Sent by a women's magazine called Eve's Weekly. There are a couple of isolated bright spots. Iona Pinto makes the Miss World semi-finals in 1960, and Ferial Karim makes the top 15 in 1962. But then India doesn't even compete at Miss World in 1963, 64 or 65. Across both pageants combined in this entire era, India has just 6 entries total and exactly 2 placements. Both at Miss World. Not surprising, given the pageant's British origins and India being a member of the British Commonwealth. At Miss Universe, they're invisible. No infrastructure, no pipeline, no cultural weight behind the crown. And then in 1966, everything changes, albeit briefly. Before we get to 1966, let me provide some context. Femina magazine, which is going to be central to this entire story, launches in 1959. It's published by the Times Group, India's largest media conglomerate. The first Femina Miss India pageant is held in 1964. But at this point, there are actually 2 rival Miss India pageants running simultaneously. Eve's Weekly sends its winner to Miss World. Femina sends its winner to Miss Universe. The national pageant infrastructure is fragmented at the start. India's population in the mid-1960s is approaching 500 million people. But pageantry is a tiny, urban, English-speaking phenomenon. There's no Bollywood pipeline yet, no grooming academies, no cultural expectation that a beauty queen becomes a celebrity. Winning a pageant title in 1960s India is an oddity, not a career move. Keep that in mind as we talk about what happens next. "1966 is one of the most remarkable single years in any country's pageant history, and almost nobody talks about it. At Miss World, Reita Faria wins the crown, having entered her first local pageant months earlier on a dare from her sister. She becomes the first Asian woman ever to win Miss World. She's 23, she's a medical student in Mumbai, and she has just made history.
But the new Miss World wants to turn down any offers of film contracts in favour of her studies. She wants to use her £2,500 prize to learn to become a gynecologist.
And in that same year at Miss Universe, Yasmin Daji, the Femina Miss India winner, finishes third runner-up. India places at both alpha pageants in the same year. Two different women from two different national pageant systems, both deliver world-class results. Both top 5. One of them wins. This looks like the start of something enormous. But Reita Faria does something remarkable after her victory. She returns to medical school and becomes a doctor. A choice that says a lot about her character and her priorities. But in the context of India's pageant development, her crown doesn't create a visible pathway into public life for the next generation. It's not that Faria made the wrong choice. Far from it. It's that the ecosystem for a beauty queen to become a public figure simply doesn't exist yet. Her achievement was extraordinary, but it remained singular. India didn't even compete at Miss World in 1967, the very next year after winning the crown. What follows is 23 pageant seasons of near total invisibility. There's a brief cluster of Miss Universe top 12 finishes from 1972 to 74, and a handful of scattered Miss World semi-final appearances.
You're a famous person, that's obvious, of course. And now let's come down to your affairs, shall we?
My what?
The most interesting part of your life, your affairs.
My affairs?
Yes.
Yes, that's what... Thank you, Miss India. Thank you very much.
But no crowns, no runners-up, nothing that builds sustained momentum. 15 straight years without a Miss Universe placement from 1975 to 1989. And here's what's ironic. Some future Bollywood stars passed through Femina Miss India during this period. Sangeeta Bijlani in 1980, Juhi Chawla in 1984, Sonu Walia in 1985. The talent is there nationally, but the infrastructure to turn beauty queens into international competitors doesn't exist yet. By 1989, Reita Faria's 1966 win is looking more and more like a beautiful anomaly, a country that stumbled into greatness once and couldn't find its way back. And then India's economy opens up and everything changes. This is arguably the most important 60 seconds of this video, because what happens off the pageant stage in the early 1990s directly explains what happens on it. In 1991, India liberalises its economy. International brands flood the market. The fashion and modelling industries professionalise almost overnight. Bollywood is evolving into something with global ambitions. By then, Femina had consolidated, attaining the Miss World rights in the 1970s and bringing it under the one organisational roof along with Miss Universe and Miss Asia Pacific. One pageant night, 3 winners, 3 international crowns to compete for, a unified pipeline. This is the infrastructure that will change everything. There's a moment from this period that captures the cultural shift better than any statistic. In 1995, Manpreet Brar, India's Miss Universe delegate who will finish first runner-up, is asked her final question about improving the status of women in her country, And she says,
I would give the women in my country the ability and the right to choose. The right to choose their lives, the right to choose what they want to do in their lives. And only then will there be individuals, and not just mothers, daughters, or wives, but individuals, thinking, living individuals.
She's representing a country where many of the freedoms she's describing are still aspirational rather than reality. And yet here's Manpreet using the International Miss Universe stage to articulate a vision of Indian womanhood that's decades ahead of its time. Keep her words in mind. We're going to come back to them. All right, buckle up, because what India does between 1990 and 2002 is one of the most extraordinary, sustained runs in dual pageant history. In 1990, Suzanne Sablok makes the top 10 at Miss Universe, India's first Miss Universe placement in 16 years. In 1991, Christabel Howie goes unplaced at Miss Universe, but Ritu Singh makes the Miss World top 10, ending an 11-year placement drought there. The following year, Madhu Sapri charms the Bangkok audience and finishes second runner-up at Miss Universe. The streak officially begins. From 1992 to 2002, India places at Miss Universe every single year. 11 consecutive years, the first country in the Eastern Hemisphere to sustain that kind of run. The Philippines would join them later. But it's not just Miss Universe. At Miss World, the results are even more spectacular. Femina Miss India 1994. Sushmita Sen wins the title. The runner-up is Aishwarya Rai. Under the unified Femina system, the winner goes to Miss Universe and the runner-up goes to Miss World. In May, Sushmita Sen wins India's first Miss Universe.
And trying to do full justice to our motto of beauty with a purpose. Remember, people, I'll always be there for you. Thank you.
6 months later, Aishwarya Rai wins Miss World, India's second. India's first alpha double, and it detonates in Indian popular culture. Sen and Rai don't merely become beauty queens, they become two of the biggest movie stars in the country, launching a feedback loop that no other nation has ever replicated. Pageant crown to Bollywood career, to household name, to inspiring the next generation of candidates. It starts right here. But 1994 doesn't merely alter the scale of Indian pageantry, it changes the character of it. What Femina builds through the rest of the 1990s isn't just a grooming pipeline, it's an intellectual one. The Indian queens who dominate this era aren't winning on beauty alone. They're winning on substance, on poise under pressure, on answers that don't sound like pageant answers. Sushmita Sen was 18 years old and from a Hindi medium school when she was asked to define the essence of being a woman. And she gave an answer so articulate that she later said she didn't even fully understand the word essence in English at the time.
I think being a woman, by itself, the very fact that you're a woman is a gift of God, which all of us must appreciate. The origin of a child is a mother and is a woman. And a woman is the one who shares love and who shares and shows a man what love, caring, sharing is all about. That is the sense of a woman.
Manpreet Brar's Thinking, Living Individuals answer the following year wasn't a rehearsed platitude about world peace. These were young women thinking in real time, drawing on genuine conviction, and the judges couldn't ignore it. India places at both pageants in 1996, including the Miss World Top 5 on home soil in Bangalore. And then Diana Hayden wins Miss World 1997. Hayden deserves more attention than she typically gets. She started working at 13 after her parents separated. She entered Femina Miss India, finished runner-up, and came back the following year to win. At Miss World in the Seychelles, she quoted William Butler Yeats in her final answer.
In dreams begin responsibility. Well, for me, this title is that dream.
And won not just the crown, but 3 subtitles: Miss Photogenic, Spectacular Swimwear, and Miss World Asia and Oceania. She's sometimes overlooked in the shadow of Aishwarya and Sushmita, and years later, a state chief minister in India publicly questioned whether she deserved the crown, comparing her unfavourably to Aishwarya. Hayden's response was direct.
It obviously is a skin colour issue that is raised over here, and I think that is really unfair to Indians. And that gets me really upset because we are brown skin and we need to be proud of our skin.
That response connects to the colorism conversation we'll get to shortly. That same year, Nafisa Joseph makes the Miss Universe top 10, the youngest contestant in the Miss India pageant that year, just 19, a passionate animal welfare advocate from Bangalore. Nafisa would go on to become one of India's most beloved MTV hosts before her life was tragically cut short in 2004. She was only 26. I want to pause and honour her memory. She was part of this golden age, and she deserves to be remembered for the light she brought to it. India continues placing at Miss Universe year after year. Top 10 finishes became routine.
What can you do in Mexico that you would get in trouble doing in India?
Drive on the right-hand side of the road?
It will have to be Audrey Hepburn. It was her inner beauty and compassion and her aura, the calm that she had inside, the woman of her that reflected.
And Miss World 1999 is Miss India.
And then Yukta Mookhey wins Miss World 1999, beating huge favourite from Venezuela, Martina Thorogood, and setting up India's most extraordinary single year in pageant history. Femina Miss India 2000 crowns 3 winners. Lara Dutta is sent to Miss Universe, Priyanka Chopra to Miss World, Dia Mirza to Miss Asia Pacific International. All 3 of them win internationally. 3 women, 1 pageant night, 3 global crowns. Only Australia in 1972 has ever matched that sweep. Lara Dutta achieves the highest televised score in Miss Universe history, and later delivers what many consider one of pageantry's most composed, intelligent final answers.
I think pageants like the Miss Universe pageant gives us young women a platform to foray into the fields that we want to and forge ahead, be it entrepreneurship, be it the armed forces, be it politics. It gives us a platform to voice our choices and opinions and makes us strong, independent that we are today. Thank you.
The feminist system was producing a new archetype, the cerebral beauty queen, prepared not just to walk the runway, but to command a room with her mind. This is also India's second alpha double, the only country in history to achieve it twice.
But I think one of the most successful women who have achieved a lot, not just for herself or other countries, I think would be Mother Teresa.
And Chopra's Miss World win also gives India back-to-back Miss World crowns, making them only the 3rd country to do that after Sweden and the United Kingdom. The placement streak runs through 2001 and 2002 at Miss Universe before ending. Let me give you the numbers. Miss Universe, 12 placements in 13 years, an 11-year consecutive streak. 2 crowns, a first runner-up, a second runner-up, a 4th runner-up. Miss World, 4 crowns in just 7 years, including a back-to-back, plus additional placements in non-winning years. Combined, 6 crowns, 2 alpha doubles, 1 triple crown. This is the definition of dominance. The Golden Age didn't just produce beauty queens, it launched superstars. Aishwarya Rai became arguably the most famous Indian woman in the world. Priyanka Chopra went from Miss World to leading a primetime American TV show. Sushmita Sen, Lara Dutta, Dia Mirza all built substantial Bollywood careers. No other country has this kind of pageant-to-stardom pipeline at this scale. But the Golden Age also surfaces harder questions. The women who won during this period overwhelmingly reflected a narrow beauty standard. Fairer skin, tall frames, features aligned with what India's massive skin lightening industry marketed as the ideal. The same economic liberalisation that opened India up to international pageantry also opened it up to global cosmetics companies. The skin lightening market became a multi-billion-dollar industry, with products endorsed by the very Bollywood stars the pageant pipeline was producing. This intersects with deep-rooted issues of caste, colorism, and who gets to represent India. As recently as 2019, Femina Miss India published a photo collage of all 30 state representatives. Every single one was fairer skinned. Activists called it a copy-paste job. I want to be upfront. I'm not an expert on Indian society or culture, and I'm not going to pretend I have the answers to those questions. But they're part of India's pageant history, and I believe a channel that prides itself on telling the full story owes it to you to at least acknowledge them honestly. After 11 years of continued success, the streak ends when Nikita Anand goes unplaced at Miss Universe 2003. What follows is a 14-year stretch where India is competitive but never dominant, present at the table but no longer owning the room. The results are, respectfully, ordinary. Occasional Miss Universe top 10s. Parvati Omanakutan finishes first runner-up at Miss World 2008. The closest India comes to a 6th Miss World crown in this era, but no wins at either pageant. India goes unplaced at Miss Universe 9 times in those 14 years. Part of the explanation is organisational. In 2010, the Times Group relinquishes the Miss Universe franchise. A new pageant, I Am She, run in partnership with Sushmita Sen, takes over from 2010 to 2012. The original winner of I Am She 2012 was Urvashi Rotella, who was ruled ineligible for Miss Universe due to her age. Her replacement, Shilpa Singh, made the top 16 at Miss Universe 2012. Rotella would eventually compete at Miss Universe in 2015, going unplaced, but she'd become one of the biggest entertainment stars in India, and was on the judging panel when Harnaaz Sandhu won Miss Universe in 2021. The pageant world is a small one. In 2013, the Times Group reacquires the Miss Universe rights and launches Miss Diva, technically part of the Femina ecosystem, but a separate competition with separate contestants. Femina Miss India stays prioritised for Miss World. Miss Diva handled Miss Universe. The unified pipeline that produced the golden age is gone.
Miss World 2017 is India.
Something shifts with India's 2 most recent Big 4 crown winners. Manushi Chhillar wins Miss World 2017, India's 6th Miss World crown, tying Venezuela's all-time record. She's a medical student from Haryana whose Beauty with a Purpose project, Project Shakti, focuses on menstrual hygiene awareness. She visits 20 villages, reaching over 5,000 women, and the campaign receives government funding to provide free sanitary napkins in schools across her state. She becomes the first woman in Miss World history to win both the crown and the Beauty with a Purpose award. Harnaaz Sandhu wins Miss Universe 2021, ending a 21-year drought. There's a lovely connection. Lara Dutta, India's Miss Universe 2000, had become part of the Miss Diva ecosystem and played an indirect role in Harnaaz's journey, a thread linking the golden age to the modern era. Harnaaz is Sikh from Chandigarh, brown-skinned, and openly talks about breaking beauty stereotypes. Her advocacy? Also menstrual equity. She partners with Plan India to launch a coalition aiming to reach 5 million women and girls. 2 Indian queens, 4 years apart, both using the global pageant platform to confront a taboo affecting hundreds of millions of women in their own country, where 62% of young women and girls still lack access to safe menstrual care. And think about Manpreet Brar's words from 1995. Individuals, thinking, living individuals. Chhillar and Sandhu are reaching the very women Manpreet was talking about. Resurgence? The question mark is deliberate. The crowns are back, Chhillar at Miss World 2017 and Sandhu at Miss Universe 2021, ending droughts of 17 and 21 years respectively. Strong runner-up placements from Adlan Castellino and Suman Rao show India can still compete at the top. And here's what's interesting. India currently has the second longest active placement streak at Miss Universe, 7 consecutive years from 2019 to 25. Only Puerto Rico has a longer active run. And at Miss World, taking into account the years the pageant wasn't held, India has also placed 7 consecutive times. That kind of dual pageant consistency hasn't been seen from India since the Golden Age. But there's a caveat. At Miss Universe, every placement since Harnaaz's crown has been a first cut and out. Top 16, top 20, top 30, top 30. The streak is real, but the trajectory within it is declining. And the infrastructure keeps shifting. In 2024, Miss Diva withdrew its Miss Universe licence entirely. The Glamournant group took over, making it the third time India's Miss Universe pipeline has changed hands in 15 years. During the Golden Age, one organisation ran everything and produced 6 crowns. Since the first franchise change in 2010, India has produced 1 Miss Universe and 1 Miss World crown and more inconsistency. As an aside, India is still seeking its first ever Miss International crown, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, the talent pool is clearly still there. India has over 1 billion people and a deeply embedded pageant culture. The ingredients for a second golden age exist. The question is whether the organisational structure can match them. But also, one must ask, is that kind of sustained success even possible in the modern pageant world by any nation, big or small? India's combined record at Miss Universe and Miss World, 9 crowns, 3 at Miss Universe, 1994, 2000, 2021, 6 at Miss World, 1966, 94, 97, 99, 2000, 2017. 2 alpha doubles out of only 5 in all of pageant history, the only country to do it twice. And a footnote on Venezuela, they technically achieved a second alpha double in the mid-1990s when Jacqueline Aguilera won Miss World 1995 and Alicia Machado won Miss Universe 1996, both from the same Miss Venezuela class in 1995. But the international crowns fell across different calendar years, so it doesn't officially count as an alpha double. And this is the right moment to acknowledge something. India and Venezuela are the 2 great dual pageant powerhouses, and their golden ages overlapped. While India was building its extraordinary run through the 1990s, Venezuela was sustaining one of its own, reaching the Miss Universe semi-finals every single year from 1983 to 2003, and winning Miss World crowns in 1991 and 95, and Miss Universe 96. Venezuela has 7 Miss Universe crowns to India's 3, while they're tied at 6 Miss World crowns each. Both countries produced incredible dual pageant success through strong national organisations. Sponsored by Femina in India and the Cisneros organisation in Venezuela. 2 different models that both produced sustained excellence. The pageant world is richer for both of them. The infrastructure story here is Femina. The Times Group built the pipeline that produced India's golden age. When it fractured, the results declined. India's pageant story is inseparable from the story of Femina Miss India. And the people's story, Reita Faria, who won Miss World in 1966 and chose to return to medicine. Sushmita Sen and Aishwarya Rai, who both won their respective crowns in 1994. Manpreet Brar, who articulated a vision of Indian womanhood decades ahead of the society she represented. Diana Hayden, a proud brown-skinned Indian who quoted Yeats on a world stage and won 3 subtitles alongside her crown. Nafisa Joseph, who shone so brightly and left us far too soon. Priyanka Chopra, who became arguably the most globally recognised Indian woman of her generation, and Harnaaz Sandhu, who stood on stage as a brown-skinned Sikh woman from Chandigarh and told the world that's what beauty looks like. These women navigated a pageant culture that exists within deep and sometimes uncomfortable contradictions, between empowerment and objectification, between global aspiration and local tradition, between celebrating Indian beauty and defining it too narrowly. But from Faria to Sandhu, they've used the platform to push the conversation forward on their own terms. India's pageant story is about more than numbers, but the numbers are indeed extraordinary. I'm the Pageant Nerd. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.